Welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast, where we feature conversations with entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and artists. Welcome back to the Agents of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Francisco Gonzalez, and I'm here once again at one of my favorite places in the world, Guatemala. And today we're in the capital of Guatemala, Guatemala City, which, by the way, for those of you who haven't been here or maybe aren't so sure, Guatemala City is actually the largest city in Central America. So here we are, and we're right in the center of it, actually in Zone 10, in the Galleria 77. And that is the gallery for this amazing artist that I'm sitting next to, Cardenas.
So great to be here, man. Thanks for the invitation, and I'm really glad we got to meet.
Yeah, and so I just met Maude last week. We had a fantastic conversation, which, you know, sometimes these things, I feel like when I have these conversations, they should have been recorded, right? But you don't know when you show up somewhere and there's some mutual friends that introduced us. But, you know, if you haven't listened to the Agents of Innovation podcast before, or even if you have, I just want to let you know, we're now well over 160 episodes of this podcast going back the last 10 years. And I encourage you, whatever you're listening on, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I should say Spotify, you can just subscribe to the podcast there or any of the other favorite listening podcast apps you might be listening to this on. Also, if you're somewhere where you're able to watch the podcast, we are also on YouTube. So just go to YouTube and in the information bar, type in Agents of Innovation Podcast, and you'll be able to find us there as well. And again, if you can subscribe to the channel in any of those formats, we also appreciate you leaving any comments. And of course, we love the likes. Give us 5 stars, all the high ratings. That way, more people will be able to learn about the podcast and learn about some of the people that we're having, both in the past and in the future. In addition, many of the previous guests on this podcast have become featured innovators in the Fearless Journeys community, which I created 4 years ago. It's really a community that connects you with innovators across the world, as well as help you build an entrepreneur mindset through a lot of great activities. We do some online live coaching sessions. We also do meetups in lots of different cities. We've been in cities in the U.S. like Miami and Nashville and Denver and Atlanta. But also we do group trips around the world. We've done 4 group trips here to Guatemala and Argentina, Colombia, Uruguay, the Dominican Republic, on and on. We've now got a trip, probably by the time you watch this, we'll have already been in Charleston, South Carolina, and we're now just announcing a trip to Chile and Argentina at the end of December and early January. So it's going to be fun. A lot of new places for us to go there. So visit us at fearlessjourneys.org. You can apply there to be part of the community, and we look forward to having you a part of it. So now let's get into this amazing podcast with Maude Cardenas. So Maude, this is an interesting name you have, M-O-D. Where did you get your name? Was that your given name?
No, I wish. It kind of is now, because not even my mother calls me by my baptismal name. But yeah, I got in school from my closest friends. I got really interested in punk rock and music movements, counterculture and all that from a very young age. So I was always talking about the punks, and before that, the mods in England. And I was like, and the mods did this, and they created this, and the mods were the first ones.
The mods.
The mods.
So the mods is like a part of the punk scene.
Is before the punk scene in England, yeah. And for example, there were the rebels that wore a jacket with jeans, and that was like, oh my God,
So would like Billy Idol fit in there? Or was he like he's later, right?
Yeah, I think he's more like a rocker.
Yeah.
So the mods used to fight what they would be called greasers, like the biker dudes.
Yeah.
So all that was really interesting to me, and they got mods also from modernism. So modernism as an art movement, I've always been completely interested in that. So I think curiosity and a little bit of obsession with certain topics throughout my life have gotten me different things. And one of them is my name, which I still use to this day. And I kept it because I started doing graffiti. So I wouldn't use my real name. So I just used my pseudonym.
So that's interesting. So first I want to know, at what time in your life did you start using the term mod? And also, at what time in your life did you start doing the graffiti, which are sort of like the street murals around Guatemala, right?
Yeah, it started, my first street art piece I made when I was 16. That's the first time I went out into the street to actually do art. Because before that, I was still learning and practicing, and I never got to go to art classes, only what I learned in school and from reading and doing my own research and going to our other artist studios to learn. Because in my family, I mean, we have a very strict tradition in art. So we went to the ballet, to the opera, to the theater, to museums, to art galleries and all that. But to be an artist was frowned upon. You know, it's like, no, don't become an artist. Those people are crazy. And look at him, he's a drug addict. And they had this stereotype of what being an artist was. And plus it was something also that was very rare to find in Guatemala, unless you went to like the National School of Art. Finding who can teach you was almost impossible in many areas of knowledge. So I started it by myself, and one day I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm going. And my first inspiration, like we talked the other day when we met, I went to LA when I was really young, at 7 years old, I think I was, maybe 8. We went on a family trip to Disney. And all I could remember from that trip, and still today, was seeing huge walls filled with colors and people with more color.
And that's not inside Disneyland. You're talking about the streets of LA.
Yeah. During the drive, I was like, what is that? And what is that? And what is that? You know, so there was a moment where I know it was like a click, like I need that in my life. I don't know what it is, but I love it. And I already loved art. So it was just a different expression. And yeah, the first time I snuck out of my house and went to do a little stencil. I was the first artist in Guatemala to use stencils as art in the street. So, and that's how everything began. And I signed it mud. And
so it's interesting what you talked about, because a lot of us, right? Art is very dominant in what we consume, whether it's actually art, like some of the work behind us here, whether it's music, theater, movies, all this is art. And yet, like you said, a lot of parents might hear their kids say they want to go and be an artist in one of these different genres and be like, no, that's a really tough thing to do. But, you know, if you do make it and you're successful, I mean, you may not just maybe be famous and popular, and make a living, but also have an impact on the culture, right? So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's super important to always have art in the school curriculums or in your family, even as a little activity, because it gives you what's most important for almost all areas of life, which is problem solving. I mean, you learn how to think differently, how to resolve something in a way that's maybe you don't even know you had it in you. So yeah, art for me is, besides being an expression of what I wanted to say or what I'm thinking or anything related to me, is also, like you say, to create an impact. So my first manifesto, that was like 4 lines in Spanish, was crear para que otros creen y no para que otros crean, which roughly translated is to create so that others can create and not because I'm preaching something. So
you're trying to, through that, inspire creation by others.
To do, and not necessarily art. You know, if you want to be a doctor, go and do it. If you want to be, I don't know, an astronaut, go and give it a try.
Every entrepreneur is a creator.
It's a creator, and a risk taker, and you have to go on a fearless journey filled with fear. That's why I love the name of your travel. The whole concept of it, I love it, because that's how you need to approach life if you want to make it.
Well, the other interesting thing, as you mentioned too, is one of the characteristics I have pointed out for many entrepreneurs I've interviewed is entrepreneurs are generally curious and creative people. And you've mentioned curiosity and creativity here, that stimulates our mind. So anytime that we can get into some sort of creative mode of stimulation, and that could be, like for me, I like to write, right? Maybe somebody likes to play a guitar or even draw or create some kind of, also learning how to cook, right? Maybe taking a culinary class. All these sorts of things are like creative expressions of things we can do. And it takes us maybe out of our sort of day-to-day mindset and allows us to really kind of focus on this creative thing that then may might spark our curiosity in some way.
Yeah, it is. And it takes you out of the routine, like the day-to-day things you're doing, and gives you a little space also for yourself. Because to be an artist, you have to have a lot of insight. It's not just thinking what will sell or will people like it or where is it going to be seen, but I have this idea inside me and I need to take it out. I need to bring it to the world. And that's why I love the words exhibition and exposition in art, because you're truly exposing yourself. You're exhibiting your better self to be judged, to be criticized, to be applauded. You don't know. And in that regards, I think when you understand that as an artist, you're also an entrepreneur, you truly understand not only the art market, but the way you're positioned inside the whole of society.
So let me ask you something, because you talked about that, getting that exposure, but early, your first art was street murals with an anonymous name at the time. Nobody knew that you were Mod.
No.
And you were putting that on there. So why were you anonymous? What was the art? And I think if we talked, were you one of the early people to actually do the street art around Guatemala City?
Yeah, I was one of the first ones to use stencils. And before, in the 1950s and 60s, maybe also 70s, we had a huge culture of murals, like fine art murals. All over the city, the great masters used to be in buildings, be in different governmental spaces, but then it stopped because of different factors. I mean, the war and repression, the system that was in place didn't also foster that.
Right.
So graffiti was a political statement. If you see something on the street, it was just letters with a message, but something political or an insult or advertisement. So for me to actually say with intention, this is going to be art, like I've seen abroad, like I've seen through history, because the first expressions in caves were on the wall, So to me, what I want that, and I think it's my language. So it was fun. It was an experience where the art was the most important thing. So it didn't matter who was creating it. I didn't want to influence, because I made it so people want to know me or to be like me or to hate on me. Doesn't matter. What matters is the art. And to be as available to as many people as possible. And as time passed by, I started understanding that art also needs to have prevalence. So not to be as ephemeral as art on the street. So that's when I started looking to do the transition into fine arts.
So yeah, what was, so you're doing this as a teenager, right? At beginning with the street art?
Yeah, well into my almost 30s.
Okay, so you started as a teenager.
I started, yeah.
And then at what point did you okay, maybe I should ask you a couple questions here. One, did you have any other schooling, anything else you were studying, or were you studying art? Two, did you have any other kinds of jobs that were sustaining you? What other kind of careers? And then three, when did you make this transition fully to be a known artist?
Yeah, it was a process. Ever since I was a teenager, I loved seeing how I can get things that I want. So we had a band, a punk rock band. So we started recording our own records because there was no record labels here to record artists. So we created our own with my brother. And
your own label?
Yeah, wow. Our own record label. So we started recording ourselves and recording other bands from nearby countries, from El Salvador, or they would send their masters from abroad, and we would go rent studios. And we found that the cheaper studios we could rent were Christian music studios because they rented by the hour. So we started, and they were like, "What are you singing about?" And like, a little bit different, but so I saw that I could actually generate money for myself doing things that I liked. So I started doing that, and then when I went to school, because I studied clinical psychology, my other passion. I wanted to study that. My father was like, okay, try economy. I'm like, nah. And business and get an MBA. I'm like, no, I'm not. At that time, I wasn't interested in that. I wanted art and I wanted psychology, and that for me was the world, you know. And I also was very young, like 17, 18, I think a bit immature also. So he said like, okay, go on your own, see what happens. So I started tattooing because I love tattoos. So 25 years ago, there was maybe 4 tattoo artists in the whole city. And the tattoo artist that used to tattoo me, he said like, yeah, I'll give you tips, I'll teach you. So he was kind of a mentor, and I started tattooing, and I did very well because demand was high and the offer was 5 people in the whole city. Wow. So with that, I paid for school, a great way. I helped my school with that. And yeah, it was amazing. I graduated, I opened my clinic. So I was doing art, and I always had,
You opened your clinic?
yeah.
How was psychology clinic?
Psychology.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you actually got the degree in psychology?
Yeah, I got a degree in psychology, and I opened 2, actually. One that was private, and one that worked with people with fewer means to pay.
Yeah.
So I had those 2 clinics, and I started doing really well also because I think when you are passionate about something and you really focus on what you're doing, you do as much research as you can and you try to be the best, so people notice that. So I was financing a lot of my art via my psychology work.
So it's interesting because you actually went to school to study psychology, became a psychologist, had a clinic, 2 clinics. To put yourself through school, to be able to afford it, you became one of the 5 tattoo artists in Guatemala, in the city. And so that kind of kept a little bit of art as well. Now, the idea, when somebody comes to one of those and says they want something, were you proposing something? Were you the creator, or did they like give you like an actual image, or was it some combination?
It was a combination because, I already studied anatomy, so that was easy to do, like where would be best place the piece they wanted or whatever. But yeah, I would suggest like, hey, listen, I have this drawing, and they were like, no, thank you. I want to have this done. So I was like, okay. I wasn't doing it truly to get my art on people. It was just a means to generate a little bit of money to do my other things. And so the clinic was actually a great gig. I was doing really good, so I could paint for free in public almost all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and at the same time, there was a few people that found me that were like, I have been looking for you for like 3 years, but now I know you, I want to buy a painting. So people started like investigating who I was until they found me, or I want a mural in my home. So I was like, this is interesting, I can start.
How did they find you? Because you're talking about, these are days before the internet, not the internet, but before social media.
Yeah, right? It was, one found me via Blogger. Do you remember Blogger? I used to have a blog.
You used to have a blog, right?
Yeah, so they would write and I wouldn't answer when there was like, let's meet or let's do this. So then they see when it's like you were connected with other people, it worked kind of like social media, but not really. So they knew somebody that knew me, and they went that way. That was fun. Yeah, and it was interesting to see how people was interested in what I was doing, because I rarely got any feedback unless I did a mural or a painting or a piece in the street, and I would stay there for a few hours to see if people stopped and looked at it, to see if they commented on it, or they just ignored it. So that was my only feedback in those days, yeah.
So for many years, you're doing this as a anonymous street artist. People are taking notice of this guy, Mod, that signs his art that way. And some people kind of track you down, and then you actually start to sell some art in that way, and create art particularly for individuals that want something. So let me ask you something. What kind of art are you particularly known for now?
Now, mostly, I think for abstract art and my conceptual pieces. Because at the same time I was doing graffiti, I was doing conceptual art. So very focused on the concept. Many pieces ended up just being an essay. So it was not visual art in the traditional sense. So, but now, and now my sculptural work, I love tying my visual artwork through research. So I'm a very academic artist in that sense, even though I didn't went to art school. But yeah, and mostly my abstractions and almost all my art has a play on visuals. It's not actually what you're seeing is not truly what you think it is. So you have a play on colors depending on how you're looking at it, the position, the light of day. So I try to do all those variations because I love the fact that all our reality is constructed by our mind.
So different people can view the same piece in a different way.
Yeah, and also in that sense and in a literal sense, if you get closer, you see something else. If you go from afar, you see something else. But it's always a collection of different pieces or a collection of different messages. It's not one thing and that's it. Because I love interpretation. I love being able to say many things at the same time with a purpose. And I love when people do that because I think that's something that has been lost in conversation over the years. Yeah. And recently it's like, if you're not on my team, then I reject you as a person.
Right.
And I think that's a very bad way to be in a society.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, first of all, for those listening to this podcast, I'm asking you this a little bit because one, I'm not an artist. I mean, I can appreciate art, but I don't really know, all the different genres. Maybe I know some very broad genres, but as it's coming down, so you're talking about being an abstract and conceptual and visual artist. But if you're actually watching this podcast on YouTube, you're seeing, we're in his studio. You're seeing a lot of art behind us. And so a lot of it is painted. And what would you call some of this here? I forget what you called that.
I call it a mosaic or a collage. Yeah. It is, for example, the wood ones, they are called wall sculptures. Mm-hmm. But for me, they are collages also because they're made of pieces, different pieces of different woods, different materials. So it's like my interpretation of us, in a sense. I think we are made of little pieces from our genetics, from our memories, from our influences. It's all little pieces that make us how we are today. So even though we are a whole, like a complete being, we are truly made of different little tiny things that makes us what we are.
I love that. I love that analogy because a lot of times when I'm talking about some of these characteristics I've heard from entrepreneurs, I like to tell people, I think one of the great characteristics of most entrepreneurs is that they're people that are formed by a variety of experiences. And I think the more types of experiences you can have in life, the more it kind of opens your mind and helps you also to connect the dots. So that's why I like, travel experiences, different types of things, but also different kinds of work experiences in life, right? Open up your mind to a lot of different types of things. So
that's very true.
And also I love the way what you talked about, how you learn, because you just learn by doing. I mean, there must be something almost like innate inside you or inside each person, but like for you, you just had this expression of wanting to go paint these street art, and then later you taught yourself the academics behind the art. And in fact, we even have a book sitting here that you've told me you've read a few times. And so it's actually really interesting because obviously school can play a very important role in many parts of our life, college, however, but we're also living in this day and age where we have access to libraries. We have access to, the library can even be on your phone, right?
And knowledge of the world in your head.
Yeah, YouTube, AI, all these sorts of things. Everything can teach us, and we can really even be self-directed to some degree. Obviously, it's great to we need some kind of teachers or guides or mentors to help point us in the right direction, but you learn the sort of academics behind different types of art and different directions you can go somewhat on your own. And have been largely self-taught in this sort of learn by doing.
Yeah, of course. And I think there's a characteristic that people tend to overlook when you say self-taught. Mm-hmm. And it's not you teaching you. is you doing and learning from others.
Right.
So what you say about mentors is key. I think that when I understood that I could learn from other people, that I could learn from their experiences, that sometimes you think you're taking a path and it's dark because you're just starting walking that path. But you know that you learn that somebody else already walked that path. So you're like, oh, there's a light and there's another light. So not everybody will teach you, but most people I've learned in my life are willing to open themselves up and say, oh man, don't go there, go that way.
Yeah.
And that, I think that is amazing. And I found it in art, I found it in business, I found it in life, in parenthood. I always try to find the one that I say, he seems like an expert. So I can relate to that person in the way that I'm thinking, that I'm looking at life. And many times it's so much easier when you look at it from the perspective of other people than you yourself thinking of your problems or what you're going to encounter because you don't know. So yeah, I think that when you're an entrepreneur, you have that curiosity and that drive, which I think is what differentiates people, the action part. Many have ideas, many have dreams and wishes and the knowledge even, but that first step and that second one and that 10 million steps you have to take, entrepreneurs do it, like you do it. And with artists, it's that way. You can be, I sold paintings recently that I painted 20 years ago because nobody paid attention to them. And it's like, okay, so it had to be 20 years for people to understand what I was making back then. And I tell young artists when they ask me, like, how can I do it? Like, don't stop. Don't stop. Keep going and keep asking and keep researching and searching. And many times I think what travel taught me the most is maybe my place is not here right now. Maybe it's somewhere else with a different kind of people around me. And when you start looking for that place, for what you think you need to give to the world, maybe in your country it's going to be many, many years ahead, or in the future, or never. But there's always somebody out there. And I think with the internet is such a game changer for art. You can reach 1 million people in one day with just advertise me.
Well, that's a good segue because I want to ask you how, being somebody from Guatemala, how is a Guatemalan artist recognized both internally in this country and also externally, and Guatemalan art as well?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. My first painting or my first artwork I sold in the streets in New York before selling anything here. I was just drawing in front of CBGB's, the music club, because we wanted to play there and we were like trying to meet people to get that happen. So I started drawing and this lady just walked by and like, hey, I love this. Where are you from? And we started touching and like, hey, here you go. So I was like, wow. But I didn't take it into like, I was 18 at that time and I wasn't thinking about selling art. But then I remember like, hey, if you travel, it's easier. And here in Guatemala, almost all galleries said no to me. Like, no, we don't know who you are. Yes, it's interesting, but for us, that's not art, what you do. And all kinds of no. So I started like what I did with music. Like we would write letters, send a letter, they would answer, and you start like making connections. Back in the day was with letters, email, people use email, not really. So I say with art, I need to do the same. Hey, here's my work. What do you think? To galleries, to art dealers, to whatever people I could find on the yellow pages from abroad. And some would answer, some would not, like, hey, it's interesting, tell me your story. Most, what I found very interesting was, okay, that's your work, but who are you? And not in a sense that we don't know you, but we want to know you. So what's your story? And I think when artists or even entrepreneurs put their story aside, they deprive people from enriching from their story and connecting to their brand or connecting to their art, connecting to their product or whatever, because people see you as, oh, he's a human being.
Yeah.
he lived things kind of like me, and he did it. So that part, I think, is...
I think that's a lesson to anybody listening or watching. That's especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you got a business of any kind, tell your story to people. And, I think it was episode 159. It was just a few episodes ago. That's why I remember Riley Kaminer. He is a storyteller. He's a journalist, but he also has a sort of a company where he sort of ghostwrites people for like sort of startup entrepreneurs. And yeah, he's always, I follow Riley on X and as well, and he's always telling people this message when he said that, tell your story. And by the way, if you've told your story, keep telling it, because people are paying attention to all their social media feeds, their emails, everything they're getting. Keep telling your story. It's almost like these commercials. You see the same commercial on television like 100 different times, like the same one. And in fact, after you've seen it 20 times, you might know it and sort of anticipate it. Maybe it's one you like a commercial. Well, if the company only played it one time, right? You wouldn't remember it, And so these companies spend millions of dollars playing the same ads, same commercials over and over. But part of that is them telling you their story and what they can offer you and things like that. So yeah, so that's important. So people wanted to know, they didn't want to just know, oh, it's a cool piece of art, but who's behind this art? Actually, probably when you were being Mr. Anonymous on the street murals, a lot of people wondering, probably sparking their curiosity even more. It's like, who is this person? I want to know about their story. So that's pretty cool that they did this. But you sort of tell me, speaking of your story, in your story, did you, it sounds like you first found recognition outside of Guatemala, but this is a little separate from the people that found you through your blog. I mean, but you sold some art as a street artist in New York, and
yeah, and it wasn't like I was planning on doing business. It was just a simple transaction. But from murals, interestingly enough, it was like people came from other countries, saw the art, went back home, and were like, "We love this." Who is?
They came to Guatemala.
They came to Guatemala. So, yeah, as you say, when you travel, you encounter things. You encounter moments. You encounter people. And one of the best things that have happened to me in my art life, is many people started being art collectors because they saw my work. So that was very inspirational for me. Like, I never thought about art. I didn't care about art. But when I saw your work, I was like, I would want to have that. I want to be a part of that. So, and then they would research other artists. And
it sounds like, somebody who didn't care about tennis, but they saw Roger Federer play, and now they care about tennis.
And they don't miss a match. And, yeah, it's like that. Or people started doing art So when I started selling abroad, and mainly in Europe, I think they are more open to the idea of, I like it. I want to see why I want it. It's not like, I like it, I want it. It's like, they asked me, like, how did you come to this? What is this? Like a more traditional way of art collecting. So I see many artists that they don't have an answer to what I consider simple questions, like, why do you create art? They're like, oh, I like it. Yeah, of course you do. But why? Like your why in life, how does this connect to everything you do? And sometimes I think that's where people or artists get kind of lost. Like, I'm not selling, I don't doing my work, I keep making it, but nobody pays attention. It's like, of course, but how are you presenting all the work matters a lot. So when I started getting rejections from galleries, I was like, okay. My first influence, I haven't mentioned it here, but was from punk rock, the DIY movement. So do it yourself. So if you want something, do it yourself. Do it yourself and do it yourself. So my first exhibitions were not in a gallery. I would rent a space and do my own exhibition. So people could come, maybe nobody. One time nobody came, but I managed to take photos and document what I did. And then a lot of people would come, I would sell or not sell. So I started thinking about that same approach abroad. I was still in school in that time. But before graduation, I took a trip. So I went to Turkey, Greece, and Egypt, and I was exploring those parts.
Before high school graduation?
No, before the university graduation.
Before university graduation.
Yeah. So everywhere I went, I was connecting with people. Like, I saw a gallery, I went in like, can I have your number? Never told anybody I was an artist, because the first times I told people I was an artist, they would say, oh no, we don't give our information, of course. So I'm like, hey, can I have your number? You have cool art. So I would have a direct contact with the director of the gallery or the manager or the owner. So I had a good, like, set up that, and I would send an email like, hey, how can I be in your space? And they were like, oh, we cannot exhibit your work, but send it. And they would say, hey, we show it to our clients. They want this piece. They want that piece. So never actually exhibited with many galleries, but made a lot of sales through the galleries. Yeah. So that way.
Well, that's great. Well, I think there's a lot to learn from a few things you said there that I hope anybody thinking about any kind of entrepreneurial effort, including in art, might learn. First of all, the power of connections. You don't make connections by just sitting home, right? For you like to travel, and you also did a lot of intentional travel, which I think is good. And you went to different galleries in all these places. And then you collected people's contacts, right? And nowadays it's so easy to connect people's contacts. I mean, I don't know, this was 20 years ago or something, right? But obviously people have phones, so you get their phone number, you write them, email, all these sorts of things. But man, when I'm traveling, almost everybody has an Instagram. I met you last week. We traded Instagrams almost immediately, right? And it's very easy to also Twitter, or X, whatever it's called. And so you're able to follow people and even directly connect with them. So there's so many great ways, but I think connections and then follow up is so important. And also you were very smart not to tip them off that you might be looking to, you might have some other interest behind getting their information. The other thing you said earlier though was so many people get frustrated or they get discouraged because of rejection.
Yeah.
And as an artist, my gosh, rejection must be super prevalent, because you might paint something or put something together that some people really like, and other people have absolutely no interest in it, right? You kind of can't be offended by it because everybody has a different taste in what their interests are. But also, it's the trial and error. It's that you were going to this gallery, to that. Okay, they rejected me. You know what? You did the DIY. I'm gonna just. This is before you had your own space here, which we'll get to. But you rented space for an evening or something, right? And then displayed it. And then you even said in one time nobody showed up. Were you crying that night? I would have been very frustrated.
No, it was. I think the fact that I always was in a mindset of let's do it. Doesn't matter if it's like with this space. When let me go back a few years. Before we got married with my wife, she told me listen, if one day when we have children, because she wanted children and I wanted children, I'm quitting my job. I'm just focusing on the health and mental health of our baby. So are you cool with that? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we got married. She always...
That was also, hey buddy, you're gonna have to pick up the weight at some point.
Yeah, it's a note. We're gonna have
right.
And so I was like, yeah, for sure, let's do it. And we got married. She had some complications, and the doctor said, you're gonna have a hard time getting pregnant, So I was like, oh, bueno. Okay, that's cool, if it happens, it's gonna be great. If not, well, that's okay. 1 month, so we got the insurance just in case when we wanted to get the baby, we would be covered. And we were planned ahead, and our insurance guy was like, you cannot get pregnant within a year. I'm like, no, we're not planning. I mean, we're not planning to, and we won't be able to. A month in, I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh. And just when we got married, I told her, because I had my 2 clinics, my psychology clinics, I was an investor in a rehab center because I wanted to also work with that. My wife had a great job doing research in a psychiatry lab. And she's a neuropsychologist, so she's fun.
Did you guys meet in college?
Yeah,
Is that college you majors?
we were best friends throughout the career.
By the way, also a tip to a lot of guys out there, most psychology classes are filled with women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in that day, psychology here in Guatemala, which was very machista, it was like only girls study psychology. So that's a career for women. And I was like, okay, I love it. So out of 100 students, I think we were 5 guys in the whole faculty. So it was fun times. But yeah, we were friends throughout the whole career. And then when she graduated first, and then I graduated, and then we started dating. But while we were getting married, I told her, I don't want to do anything else but art. So I'm closing the clinics. I sold my share in the rehab center, and she got pregnant, and she told me, cool, do your only art, but remember what we talked about. I'm focusing on the baby. I'm like, oh my God. So we were 2 people living from like 7 incomes. We were going to be 3 people with, I think we can live only from art.
1 income and only from art income. That's quite unbelievable. And what were you doing? Was the art bringing an income before that?
It was bringing, but nothing like that I could say we can live from this, like have a living from this. Because one of the things, going back to the experiences of no and doing it yourself and rejection, is that you learn that there's no, in art, for example, it's very different, or in the many creative professions, you need to learn how to budget, because you're going to have months that are, you can sell thousands of dollars in 1 week and then be 3 months with 0 sales. So you understand that you need to properly have self-discipline.
And as an entrepreneur, when you're sort of a solo entrepreneur in some ways, you're looking at, this is your income, so you had to have a savings for your personal, on your personal side, and then also savings for the business, like good capital invested into your business. You had to keep it going. So, Maude, you also, at some point, I don't know how far along you were, how old your child was at this point, but you mentioned to me that in addition to just having art as your 1 income, you also needed to have a studio for it, and you had to invest in a studio. What was the process like of investing in the studio, the cost factors, and what did your wife think?
Yeah, that's a key part, I think, like finding a partner that understands, not only believes in you, but understand where you stand, what do you want, and where are you going, and that needs to be a two-way street. So,
by the way, let me pause there because I'm not married, but I will say this. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs that got divorced.
yeah, of course.
And I think that's really important what you said, because I think that has to be a good partnership, and everybody needs to be fully on board. And I think if let's say you're the entrepreneur in the relationship, like this, I think it's really important that you have this discussion, and you got to figure out what's more important to you, your marriage or your business. And that should probably be something you think about before you get married. But also, if your marriage is important, you got to have a spouse that's supportive, and also somebody to talk through those sorts of things, because it has to be a decision you make together. And also sometimes what kind of time that you have to devote to the business. It's not just a matter of cost in money, it's cost in time away from your family, your kids. So there's a lot of sacrifices involved in being an entrepreneur, and that's why it's very difficult. But I think your story with you and your wife, it's really special because she was very supportive, and you were on the same page together, and that's why you still have such a great marriage.
Yeah, thanks you. And yes, it's in one of my trips, I was in Miami during Art Basel I think it was 2015. So I had my little studio, which was a little room in my apartment, and I used to paint there and do my things. But every time I wanted to do like a big painting or a big sculpture or something, I would have to go out and look for a space. So my baby, I think she was, I don't know, maybe 4 years old or 5 years old. So I started traveling again going to do exhibitions and going to make connections. And I always think it's important to visit in whatever area you are in business or anything, to go to art fairs, to go to business fairs, to go to engineering fairs or whatever your field is, to see what's happening. So I like traveling to art fairs a lot. And I was actually invited, and that's how I ended up here. I met this collector from Guatemala, and he said, listen, I have some properties in Miami. Do you want to paint them? And he was like, I don't have money to invest in one of your murals. But I was like, hey, no, pay for the trip. And it's a hobby. I mean, it doesn't have to be. So I went, I did a mural. This was, like 12, 13 years ago. I'm not really sure. But near Wynwood. So I was like, cool.
Is it still there?
No, the property was inside the property, and they rented that property for movies and a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, it was really cool. So I was like, yeah, man, let's go. I wanna go there. And I met him through another friend that did graffiti that met him years before in Miami. So connections,
Yeah.
And I went there and I saw a lot of small galleries in Miami, and I said, like, this is really cool, because I was always thinking on blue chip galleries, like the highest of the highest. And if one day if I have my gallery, I need like a building. So when I saw these small galleries, I said, like, I can do this in Guatemala. I know I can do it. And I saw a need for a space for artists. I was already established, but there's a need for artists that are starting on their careers or are transitioning from graffiti or street art or writing, and now they're doing visual work. So it's like, I think I can open a space. I want to open a space, and I need a bigger studio space where I can do my things without, like going out to look for that space. Or my wife, to this day, she laughs because she looks at our home, and still she's like, I feel so weird looking at the dinner table and not seeing all the egg spots, because I used to.
That's where you used to do it.
In the dining room. Whenever I could, I was working there. So I found this building, and I said, like, I like it here because it's not heavy.
Where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's not heavy on traffic, so I can work. And if I'm doing an exhibition or something, or putting together a show, I can invite people, and it's quite centric. But the rent here was super expensive. It's one of the most expensive zones in the whole city. So I said, like, I need to talk to the owner of the building. And my wife was like, how are you going to talk? And we need to talk to him. So I ended up meeting him, and I got together with him. Before, I was looking for finance through banks. Like, I need a loan because I want to open this art gallery, and this is my plan, and this is what I think we're going to be making through the first 3 years. And they're like, no, you're going to be closed in 2 months. Don't do it. And to the bankers, they were like, I think they were looking out for me, like, no, man, that's not a good idea. It's a bad business. And I know it's a hard business, not a bad business. So nobody would lend me the money. Nobody would invest. My friends were like, dude, don't do it, man. It's like, and so I finally got a meeting with the owner. He was like, I understand you, because he came to Guatemala with almost nothing, and he grew exponentially. It's like, I remember he told me, like, I don't understand your business, but I understand you. And I was like, okay, that's cool.
You understood your passion.
My passion and my focus, because it wasn't like, I want to have a gallery and have meetings and, have parties. It's what, like, this is serious for me, So he helped me out with rent. We even traded a couple of months of rent, and I did some murals in the building. So we were doing that. And I told my wife, like, listen, I didn't get the money, but I got the space, and I'm going to use all our savings. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, we have to do this. So she was like, okay, do it.
Wow.
I believe, do it. So I took all our savings, yeah. And from all the people that collected art from me up to that day, which I always ask them like, hey, how do you get to where you are? How did you do it? And everybody like, you have to diversify. That word stuck with me like,
Sacrifice?
to diversify, like, how you have. And I was like, you're putting everything in one thing.
Yes.
You're doing the one thing everybody told you, like always diversify, like have a cushion, like, and I don't know.
I mean, you just talked about it, having savings and having but you put all the savings here to invest in this studio in the heart of Zone 10. We're just a block from Plaza Fontebello for people who know Guatemala City. Actually, it's funny because, I was telling you when we met the other night, I said, what's great about the Fearless Journeys group trips I do, especially to Guatemala, is I got so many great connections, and I feel like the connections keep building. And I was telling you, we just did a group trip here in January with with some artists, a band, the musicians, the Curries. And almost everybody that came on the trip was already fans of this band. And we stayed a block over here at the Clarion Suites. That's where I've actually done all of the group trips. We stay right here. It's almost right across the street.
Yeah, and the other.
And there was one afternoon that we got into the city a little early. We were coming from Lake Antillon, and we sort of had a couple hours of downtime. And I told everybody, go ahead and find some lunch at Plaza Fontebello, a nice little area to walk around and a lot of different things that you can find depending on your taste. And I said to you, boy, if I knew you then, we would have come over to your studio. So on a future group trip to Guatemala, we'll have to visit Maud's studio and get a chance to talk to you. I'm sure some of these people would have loved it because almost everybody on that trip are big fans of art and music. So I'm sure they would have loved it. But no, you're in a great spot here.
Yeah.
And so let me just, let's go back to finish the tail end of that story, because you invested in this space, and how many years ago was that?
It's going to be 10 years in February.
10 years.
10 years. Yeah. I'm still here. We didn't go bankrupt. I have two.
You have two?
2 kids, 2 girls. One is 14, the other is 11. And all this story, I think sometimes I forget to also tell, like, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Right.
Like, you have hardships. There was nights, and especially the first year here, where I was just sitting on the balcony of our apartment, like smoking, like, oh my God, how am I going to pay rent? Like, how am I going to pay for school? The insurance people keep asking for their money. And I wasn't bringing enough to cover everything. So I was like, no, you just focus and keep going, keep going. And what I learned very quickly is like truly the power of marketing, because I saw I wasn't taking advantage of the hotels specifically during my first year.
And you're right, you got a bunch right around.
And there's a bunch here. So I started putting, the first thing I did was do it like back in the band days, put up posters, like just glue them to the light poles. Like, there's a gallery there if you want to see it. So the first year I was here every day, opening from, drop the girls at school, then come here, then stay here, then go pick them up, go back home. So that wasn't working at all because I wasn't earning like a salary, like just from the sales. So the second year, the move that worked really great, and that's where everything changed, is like, I say, no, I cannot have this place open. I cannot hire anybody to be here, especially because I will have to train them so much in so many different artists to explain each piece of work and my work. So it came to me, I was one day like thinking, how can I do it? How can I make it work? So it clicked like by appointment only. So when we put...
It also brings a little exclusive factor to it.
Super exclusive factor. Yeah. And it also allowed me to be really present with each people that wanted to come here. So once a month, we had an opening or an opening or a show, a cocktail or something.
Like an open house.
Yeah, or an open house. And we started doing it at night, and I saw that many people wouldn't come because of traffic or, man, I'm going out of office, I want to go home. So we started doing them Sunday, and it would get packed. Because there was nothing else to do in the city on Sundays. So that worked really well. And when we put that this by appointment only, people will call, hey, I want to go. And our sales went from maybe 1 2 paintings a month to almost 20.
Wow.
Yeah, so that switch was really cool because the people that were coming to the events wanted to see art, while the people that were calling and writing to us wanted to buy art.
So if people are in Guatemala City or maybe visiting, what's the best way for them to find you?
Instagram, I think, is the best way.
It's Mod
Cardenas, yeah, or Mod 77 Art.
I'll give you a month, 77 art. So I'll put that in the show notes too. So if anybody's listening or watching, but you can go on Instagram, Mod 77 art.
Yeah, and back then I was living 2 blocks away, so I was just home and walk here and open.
That's easy.
Yeah. So and now it's we have had artists. The last one came from Germany. We didn't know each other through a mutual. I met this guy, super cool guy. He came from Germany and opened a wallpaper business. His name is Holger, and he was like, hey, my parents used to have a gallery back in Germany. I know a lot of artists in Germany. And I told him, let's do a collaboration with somebody there. So there's a lot of cultural exchanges. People come from other countries to present something here. Then I go there, or another artist friend go back to their country. So yeah, that's just a way. This was a vehicle to be more creative in a sense of actually making a proper living. Because with my paintings, I do really good. I mean, I have no complaints. There's some hard months, but never like 15, 20 years ago that I was like, oh my God, I don't want to starve to death. But now when you see that from one business can be many other businesses at the same time, and you can also give education and give your knowledge and give talks and have people come and get inspired and they bring you ideas. I think when you realize that your business is not just what you're doing, but when you're in service of others, it really comes back to you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the other thing I think that's cool about that is that if you go and you find Mod, and you go by appointment only, but what's cool is you can actually meet the artist and come through his studio and see the work that's here. So I'm assuming there's some things here that might already have sold, I don't know, but maybe things that haven't. Is there any experiences where somebody says, I like your work here, but they want to give you an idea for something? Will you do something that's like you haven't even started yet, like that somebody gives you an idea for?
I do like that kind of commission work. I don't only have one style, or I have like 3 different styles. And one of them, like the ones you can see with your phone. Mm-hmm. One of the things I love doing is portraits of people. So I learned from, I've done a few of grandmothers, for example, and they're like, so tell me your grandmother's story, and we have like this moment.
And it's an abstract type style of portrait, or is it
like the one with the lines? It's an op-art portrait. So
I hope that wasn't grandma over there.
No.
Okay.
That's a nude, but no grandma. So I do the face, and I love it. Or people, I had one that I really enjoyed doing. It was this photo of this collector from Guatemala went on a safari in Africa. So he took a great photo of some cheetahs. And he's like, I want this in a painting.
Cool.
In your style. So I made the photo in my style. Or I would do, what I get asked a lot is like, listen, that one's too big for my wall, or it's too small, or it's too heavy. So if you have a space, many people send me a photo. I do something that it's gonna look great there. So we go back and forward a little bit, and they don't even get together if they don't live in Guatemala. If they live in Guatemala, I do make it a point that we have to meet in person. Yeah. I don't do digital if we live in the same city, because we need to make a connection.
Yeah.
So if they live in another country, we do it digitally, have a Zoom or on Google Meets or something, and I propose something for the space, and gladly to this day, nobody has said, oh no, I don't like it. So it's always, there's a sale to be made.
So this studio, obviously, it's great for your work, for your workspace as well. I mean, for you to actually get work done, but also to showcase your work, have galleries. But how do you help other artists as well?
The first thing we started doing was one of the requirements many galleries have or the art world has is that you need to have a solo exhibition in your curriculum. Like, where have you exhibited? What did you exhibit? And many artists only have group shows. Like, there's 20 more artists and one of my paintings. So we wanted this space to be like that first solid stone of, okay, I had this solo exhibition here, but in order to do that, we needed to also not just have established artists, but established gallery.
Yeah.
So to do that, we needed to be validated by art collectors, validated by art historians. So having a network in the art world and telling people like, listen, we're doing this is our idea. It's like, it was a front, oh yeah. And I asked my friends, my most established artist friends, like, listen, we're having a group show every 2 months with young artists or artists that are starting, because it doesn't matter your age. Would you be in the exhibition as a way to,
Help
push the career?
So at no sort of more well-known artists are being paired in the same exhibition with even couple artists.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so that was how I saw things working. And many artists, young artists, took the opportunity, because I told them, listen, I'm inviting my collectors to your exhibition. So network and do your work. Because I'm not a gallerist.
Right.
I'm an artist that has a gallery.
Yeah.
So it's an artist-run space that is also a gallery, but I won't do your sale work.
So you'll have some group shows here, but also some solo exhibitions. Do you kind of remove your art? Yeah. So everything would be totally this person's art.
Yeah.
If there's an artist here in Guatemala, by the way, is it just Guatemalan artists?
No, people from the last project, if people want to exhibit here, the first thing we require to everybody is like, present me a project.
Okay.
Not just, look, I want to exhibit my paintings. No. What's the project? Why do you want to exhibit? How do you want to exhibit your things? And to actually have a purpose, not just I have all this in my closet and I want to show them, and also take into account, if anybody wants to apply, because we're open to it, the style of our gallery. Because, for example, we don't exhibit traditional landscapes because it doesn't go with the space. And that's a tip I give artists all the time. Like, if you want to apply to a gallery, first research the gallery mission, their statement, who has exhibited there, what kind of work do they work with, and what do they sell, to whom do they sell. Like, do your proper research, because if I, for example, take my abstract work to a gallery that specializes in Renaissance art, I'm just wasting their time.
Right.
So yeah, and the last artist that came, that was with my friend from Germany, he came, we didn't know each other. So the whole idea of the project was us going in Guatemala City, looking for materials and looking for where we could connect as artists. And the presentation was at the end, but the artwork wasn't the goal. It was like the process. So a lot of artists,
Not the destination, but the
journey.
Yeah.
That I think in life is key. In business is key. It's like, you need to enjoy every part, every step, every single thing. The finished artwork is cool. It's there and you sell and you make money, but how it came from here or for something greater than I think we're just like tools in artists. We take from something greater than us, it comes through us, and we make it physical so that it can connect with somebody else. But that inner journey and being able to express that, I think it's a blessing, and being able to live from that is a blessing. So we really demand from artists that they take it seriously. Our space is not the biggest, but it's nice space. And it's a serious space because also a lot of artists think it's like, oh no, I only do this as a hobby. I'm like, really cool, that's your hobby? It doesn't matter, but are you serious about it?
Yeah.
You know, is it honest? Does it come from an honest place? So I think successful art is art that is honest, that is not trying to pretend to be something that it isn't.
Authentic.
It's authentic, and it comes from a place of giving and not from ego.
Yeah. Well, we've heard a lot of amazing parts of your story here, Ahmad. And it just seems, again, like this, you represent what I think is, you know, what it really takes to be a successful entrepreneur and artist.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. A lot of times people, they have an art mindset. They're artists.
Yeah.
They like to paint, sculpt, whatever, draw. And they don't necessarily have the skills to be a successful business person. But you, first of all, you seem to have those skills. Like you thought, we've talked about a lot of things. I don't know where they came from, what, you know, some of the things you took, but, you know, so tell me maybe a little bit about how you combine the, you know, obviously the passion is your art, but there's also this business side that needs to get taken care of. How have you kind of combined those things? And also, what would you say to other artists out there about thinking about being successful and needing to know how to be successful as a business, because you got to make it?
I think that the first key, which is something I learned from watching others, it didn't matter what field they were in, would be music, because for me music was like my entry to everything. I saw there were really, I don't know if it's the correct word in English, but comprometidos, like devoted, like not compromised, but really engaged in what they were doing, and self-disciplined. So I was, I don't know, blessed in a sense ever since I was a little kid to be a good observant. I observe and I learn, I understand, and I try to apply. So self-discipline is key. And most of us creative people are really messy. And I understand, because when I think of something, I'm thinking of 7,000 other things at the same time. And more ideas and things I want to do, and it's just like raining thoughts all the time in my head. So focusing on one thing is very hard, but it's key. It's like, if you're, for me at this, if I'm working on a piece of art, and focus on that piece of art, because I used to work on this and that and that and that, and sometimes it was like 6 months and I didn't finish anything. So first, self-discipline is key, and then having I think, be humble enough to understand that if you want to make it as a creative or as an artist, even if you're, because in many ways, I mean, I'm against the system. I don't like many things in politics, in society. It doesn't matter which side is. If I think something is not working or I don't agree with, I'll say it. And I'll say it through my artwork, or just plainly say it. And for me, for example, I don't have the best business model, because I know what I could sell daily and make a lot of money. But I don't want to, because I don't want to turn my art into just a product.
Right.
So from some artists, that uncompromising goes way too extreme, in a sense that they don't really, either you need to take into account who do you want your work to be purchased by.
Right.
So how do you do that? You need to start reading about how do you read your clients? How do you find your market, your niche? So knowledge first. So I think, and in whatever you do, the first thing you need to learn to do is how to sell. If you're a good salesperson, I don't think you will go hungry never. You can have $10 and a good way of selling, that you can get a job, you can rise faster than anybody else. So when I understood that I needed to actually sell what I was making, because yes, some pieces sell by themselves because people like it, but the rest didn't. So I need to sell all that I have, and some pieces will sell, some other will not. And that's just a reality in almost everything.
Well, at the end of the day,
Selling is key, and reading. For example, when I started the gallery, the first thing I needed to learn is how do I open a company? Because they wouldn't rent me the space without a company. So I need to learn that. I need to find lawyers, I need to find an accountant, I need to actually do things in such a proper way that I won't get into trouble. So you need to learn and research and asking. I think the most important thing for a creative is, and the hard part is, truly acknowledging the value of what you do. Because most people will tell you like, listen, I know you do this and it's beautiful. I'm not gonna pay you, but many people will see it if you put it in my office, if you do it for my company. So that trade, when you're starting, it's okay. But if you're 1 year, 2 years in, you cannot keep giving your work for free.
right.
And I think the hardest part as an artist is to actually make people understand the value of your work as a creative, because society tends to make it like or it's a hobby or anybody can do it, and it's true. But if you want my things,
You pay a lot of people a lot of good money for things, lawyers, right, doctors, all sorts of things. There's a reason people value some of those things, but as you said, people also value art, and art is probably one of the most subjective things, right? that you can place an actual like material value on. But again, I think that's a really smart move, being able to be, knowledgeable enough and help people take your work seriously and value it, and to put some kind of value. We could probably have a whole other discussion on that, right? But because that's huge. But I think at the end of the day, one of the things you said everybody needs to have everybody that's listening to this, I don't care what you do, you got to have some kind of sales skills. If you think about it, even if you're working for somebody else, what do? The first thing you do is you sell them yourself with your resume, right? And then your interview. And then if you're an entrepreneur, there's a lot more selling going on. If you're an artist, there's a lot of selling going on, but you're always selling. So you got to learn how to get better. I mean, in some ways, listening to your story, you even had let's just say you had the skills enough to know, you know what, I want a space in that building. I should go talk to the owner, rather than just like, this is the price that the owner has for a space of this dimension. What can we work out? And you had to sell him on that too.
yeah, of course. And I think that in order to be successful, you have to be a good listener and be humble enough to understand that even if you're an expert, you can still learn something.
Well, I need to sell some more copies of my book.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm just sitting here going, you have just listed all these different characteristics that I've had in both of my books. I mean, a listener, humble, authentic, problem solver, creative, curious. I mean, these are all the types of characteristics I've identified. And like, you're like an example entrepreneur and artist that like embodies all these things and also really thinks about them intentionally. And because I think you've had the experience of going through this over the last few decades.
Yeah. And the list you gave me last time, I think that so spot on, because sometimes it's hard to put into words how you did it. I mean, the why is easy. The process is a little bit easier to describe, but the truly how is like everybody asks, how did you do it? And to explain it, but when you have clear characteristics of the personality type, let's call it,
Right,
that you need to embrace, because many people are like, oh, but I'm not like that. Like, but you could. If you apply yourself, you can have all the characteristics.
Well, what's really interesting is sometimes I'll give that list to people, whether they're an entrepreneur or not. Just, hey, here's 10 common characteristics of the entrepreneur's mindset. And most people, and I think if you were listening to this, can go down that list and go, I'm good at that. I'm good at that. This not so much. So when I look at it, is I go, these are general characteristics. But if you're you're a good problem solver, but maybe you need to work on your listening skills. You know, first of all, recognize your strengths and lean into your strengths, but also say, what are my weaknesses? And maybe that weakness is never going to become a strength, but let's make sure it's not a weakness anymore.
It doesn't affect you, yeah. It doesn't get in your way. And you know, we're meeting you and talking about your book, I just reminded me of something, because we've talked of the personal characteristics and the importance of meeting people and traveling and mentors. And I do think that there's always people that believe in you, even if they don't know you. And that to me is so magical in a sense, you know, like when you find somebody that believes in you and is willing not only to invest money, because that you can get almost anywhere, but is willing to invest time and invest emotion in what you do, in what you're thinking, is something you need to appreciate. And being grateful, I think, it's a great part of having evidence that you're not everything is bad, man. You know, like when you're grateful, you start to recognize what you do have. So like going through your list, like I need to do this better, but not just be like, oh yeah, I don't have it, and just many people start criticizing themselves, and this is why. So now, okay, just work on it. Find a way to improve it. Like you say, maybe it's not going to become one of your strengths, but let it not be an obstacle.
So I heard you in parts of your story mention how different times in your life, especially when you were young, when you traveled somewhere, like when you went to LA, you saw the murals, it gave you an idea to come back here. You went to New York, you sold some street art, but I know you also, I think your band played in New York.
Yeah, we were in New York. We recorded 2 albums there.
So can you just maybe sum up maybe a little bit, how has travel in general impacted you? And also, now that you've become a world-renowned artist, by the way, I should mention to our audience, because you might be too humble to, this man has received awards all around the world. And I know for artists, awards may not, you know, there's different things in terms of gallery showings and sales and all these things, but awards are recognition in the art world. And he's been awarded, given awards in Australia, in Italy, in Dubai. So, and I know he's exhibited in lots of other countries. So I guess what I would ask you there is, you know, how has travel impacted you prior in your life, but also where in the world has art taken you?
That's a great way to ask it, because first of all, travel for me has been like a part of my life. I think if I had a do-over in life, it's not a regret, because it's not, but what I would have done more is travel more.
And this is, I'm not going to lie though, we all say this, but this is a very well-traveled man.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've traveled a lot, but
I guess you kind of, I guess you and I would probably say get started earlier.
yeah, maybe that, because it's so easy. We were talking about it. It's easy to travel. People think it's, I mean, depending on what kind of travel you want to do, but travel is easy. And you always find people in other countries that are willing to lend you a hand or point you like, go there. And people are very friendly, but traveling has mainly taught me 3 things. One is that people just want peace and happiness everywhere. We might think the other is very different, or in that country, or people have the same desires, the same ideas, the same wishes for, in the most part, for life.
Right.
So that was for me like a real eye-opener, because I mean, I grew up in a very strict school, and my home was also very strict. And when I saw people living differently, it was a bit of a shock at first, but then I was like, we are not different. So that was one. And 2, the possibilities are truly endless in life. I mean, when you travel, you actually see that you can do whatever you want. It doesn't mean it's going to happen the way you want it, but you can actually do it, and you meet people, which I think is the most important thing. For most of us artists, we tend to be really introverted, or we tend to be almost like hermits. My wife has to tell me like, hey, you need to out of the house, go socialize, go do things, because if I'm really immersed in my work, it's like the world ceases to exist and I don't need to go out. I just need to create. So traveling gives you that openness to meet people, to understand, like I was saying at the beginning, maybe you are just geographically not in the right place. So maybe in that other place, you can actually grow what you want to grow. And the third thing I think it gives you such a personal confidence, like self-confidence in yourself when you have, especially if you travel alone, like if you don't know anybody where you're going, it tends to be a little bit more scary, let's go on. But when you're not traveling as a tourist, where you're actually a traveler, like you told me the other day, which I love that differentiation. It's like when you walk through the streets, when you meet the locals, when you eat where the people eat, where you go, where the people go to relax, to learn, to whatever. When you expose yourself to that, sometimes it's even, maybe you don't even know when you were in a little bit of danger. But if you don't know, it's like, oh, I didn't know. But you also need to listen to your intuition, like, this place is not that cool, maybe go back. And you start to interact with other people and you start to lose fear in doing. I think that translates in doing things in a fearless way in business, in art, in family, because many people run away from relationships because they're afraid. So I think it impacts all the parts of your life in a good way. And if you have a bad experience, it's just that. It was a bad experience. Many people tend to say, I'm never going back to that country ever again. It was one thing in one city in one moment.
Yeah.
Even though I try.
Yeah, somebody might have a bad experience with maybe food poisoning somewhere, right? I never go back to that restaurant, or I'm never going to that country where I got the food poisoning, or like whatever. But I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, sometimes these are just, think about how many bad experiences you've had in your life in your own city or your own house or whatever, right? Like, but you keep doing things. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you can change the situation. You can build all these unique characteristics, having a different perspective, building connections with others, seeing the world from a different viewpoint. And I agree with you. It's kind of almost this paradox in traveling, in that when you see, actually there's something very universal about the human condition.
Yeah,
we all kind of have the same hopes and dreams and fears and all these sorts of things. But on the flip side, we also see the diversity and the different ways of doing things and the different cultures and all these sorts of things. So it's pretty cool. And I don't know, how many countries have you been to now?
I think 11.
11.
Sure, yeah. And one of the things I haven't traveled more is because, for example, I have 4 countries that I say I'm not setting a foot there if it's not for art. So if my art doesn't take me there, I'm not going.
Yeah.
One of them was Italy. Until I
Was where? Italy?
Italy, yeah.
But it wasn't because you didn't dislike Italy. You just, I want to go there and I want my art presented.
My goal was like, you're going to Italy only when you present art. So, I mean, I could have gone at any time and I wanted to go like really badly. My wife was like, let's go to Italy. I'm like, no, not yet. So in the end, I managed to be invited to a biennial, which was in Florence. So we went there for a little bit over a month.
And you've been to the U.S. many times.
Yeah, I've been to the U.S.
Including Miami.
I love the U.S., Miami. I love it. And I love New York, one of my favorite cities in the whole world. I've been to Paris, and I mean, I've been to many countries, and the other country, I have 3 more countries I still haven't visited because of art. One is Iceland.
Okay.
The other is Spain.
Oh, wow.
I really want to go, and I really want to go to Spain, but I'm still working towards getting the project I want to present there to be there.
Okay.
And also one of the biggest art fairs happens in Spain, and I want to be in that art fair for my first trip to Spain. I've only been there like in transit. Like.
And where in Spain is that?
It's in Madrid.
Madrid.
Yeah.
I love it.
And every time I travel, for example, in Italy, we went to like, I think, 12 cities with my wife. So we just took a train and went.
Yeah.
We went all over the place. Yeah. And the other one that I actually did was Germany. And I went 2 years ago. I was invited to a symposium.
But Iceland and Spain?
Yeah. In Germany was the other one, but
But you've done it. So if anyone's listening or watching in Iceland and Spain, I think maybe more potential in Spain as far as I can tell. I don't know. Iceland, I feel like you go outside, you look at the northern lights, and you sit in these hot pools. I don't know. Maybe you look at art too. But anyway, look, this is amazing, Mod. We've had a great conversation here. It's been great getting to know you here recently too. And if anybody would like to connect with him, Instagram, mod77art. We'll put that in the show notes. You also have a website?
Yeah, modcardenas.com.
modcardenas.com. We'll also put that in the show notes. So just in case for those of you that don't get on social media like Instagram. But yeah, it's just really been great. Any last parting words, thoughts that you'd like to leave with our audience?
First, to thank you. Really, it has been amazing meeting you, and what you do with your podcast and with your projects. I think it's really something that inspires a lot and that brings change to the world, especially in all the turmoils that are around. I think connecting people and bringing them together is the key to change in the world. So yeah, and travel without fear. Fearless traveling.
That's right.
That's the key to life, I think.
I had a friend text me the other day and say, Francisco, I can't keep up with you. Are you traveling the world right now? And my answer to him was, we are all traveling the world right now. And so we're all on a journey, and you might as well be fearless, because you only got one life. So bring all of the gifts that you have, so that others can see, including what Mon has done here in this gallery, some of the gifts of his art, that really is something only an artist can create, right? It's a very, very unique thing. So thanks for welcoming us into your gallery.
Anytime.
And thanks for being an agent of innovation. And thanks for being on the Agents of Innovation podcast. And we'll see the rest of you very soon.